So on October, I believe it is October 3rd, I would have to look it up, but it is sometime next month, the Supreme Court is going to begin hearing arguments in Moore versus the United States. Now, this is not Moore v. Harper. This is another one. And in this case, the right-wing billionaires are funding this in a big way, and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and, a bunch of other groups. And if the Supreme Court rules the way that the right-wing billionaires want them to rule, they will put into place essentially a $270 billion a year tax cut for about 400 multinational corporations and most American billionaires, at least those who are invested in overseas entities. This has to do with a tax that was built into, of all things, Donald Trump's tax cut law. Donald Trump's tax cut was so egregious, almost $2 trillion in tax cuts for the top 1% of Americans. It was so egregious that they had to add some taxes back into it to keep from breaking the, breaking the U.S. budget just wide open. And so the tax that they added back in was that if you own a company or if you are an investor in a company that's operating overseas, actually, if you own a company that's operating overseas, the couple that brought this lawsuit own a company that operates in India. And you've been accumulating profits year after year after year in your checking account in India. At some point, you have to pay income tax on those profits. Now, if you accumulated those profits in the United States, you would have to pay a tax. But if it's in India, you can say, well, that's offshore money. And so what this law says, going back to 2017, Trump's tax cut, what this law says is that you have to pay that tax. And so this married couple based out of Washington State, who, like I said, own this Indian company, or this company based in India, they are suing with help from the Chamber of Commerce and others before the Supreme Court. Now, two things would happen if the Supreme Court rules the way that this couple and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the Manhattan Institute, which is chaired by billionaire hedge fund manager Paul Singer. If this works, not only would it be in the neighborhood of a $270 billion a year tax cut for these people, but it also would mean that Elizabeth Warren's proposal for a 1% tax on wealth would become unconstitutional, according to the Supreme Court. This is going to be a very consequential case. We're going to hear a lot when the actual arguments begin next month. We're going to hear a lot about it. We probably won't get the decision until next spring, but there's a lot on the line here. And Sam Alito and John Roberts both own stock in companies that will benefit to the tune of $30 billion if they rule the way that the Chamber of Commerce wants them to rule. And they're refusing to recuse themselves, even though their stock, if the day that they do this ruling, the stock in these companies that John Roberts and Sam Alito own is going to go through the roof. Because, those companies will no longer have to pay taxes on their unrealized overseas profits. And the billionaires, of course, will be very, very happy because it blows up a wealth tax.